can afford to lose $10 million on the bet.
Oh, I guess so.
Hi, Lorna. There you are, right at the top of the deck there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Proska, good to see you. We've got a few more people dialing in. Sorry, we got.
Why, I'm glad to see you.
Want me to throw some onion in it?
Sure. All right, Deanne, I'm turning it over to you for our quick mortgage minute.
Hi, it's Deanne over at Movement. How is everyone? Happy Monday. It's totally rainy. I just want to make you all aware that I intend on winning the $1.9 billion Powerball tonight. And if I do that, I will buy a home from each of you. So that's my commitment for the day. But if I don't meet that commitment, I just want to let you know interest rates are still in that 7.25% interest rate. And it's still a good time to buy a home because sellers are getting inspired and they're starting to get a little bit more realistic in their price point, and we might see a little bit more of that. But I'm optimistic, and I say it's a great time to buy. And even if it's not today, let's get those buyers ready for the new year. So
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks,
you are so welcome. You can stay on if you'd like, Dan. We are going to talk a little bit about lender, so I might need you if you.
Okay, I'm going to hang in.
Okay, awesome. So tonight we're going to cover the changing marketplace and really kind of getting some inspired tips from other top producers that I've spoken with recently. I think it's a great topic tonight. I'm sure we'll have a lot of people join us and a lot of people wanting to listen to this recording. I told Shannon, I said, it's a Monday, crazy hair day. Rochelle's looking a little frazzled. It's Monday, but we're going to go ahead with it and just give you some tips that I picked up. And hopefully you can use those right away in your business and make sure that you are getting people the information that they need. So let's go ahead and jump into the next slide, Shannon. If you do have a quick question, just pop it in the chat. We'll go ahead and answer the questions at the end. So the number one question I'm hearing, and you guys probably are hearing as well, and Deanne, I know you're getting this, what is happening with interest rates? That seems to be the topic of the hour, the day, the week, the month. And every single time I check my email box, I don't know about you, but I'm getting some sort of email from the Fed or from Fannie Mae or from this company laying people off or that company laying people off. And so you can kind of get caught in that frenzy. And so what I want you to think about here tonight is that when somebody asks you the question, what's happening with interest rates? I don't want you to fall into the trap of just going to the gloom and doom. What I want you to do is think more and having a more consistent, positive message, just like Deanne did at our movement minute, right? Where we just have just a minute of what's going on and maybe some real life or just your area, what's going on with that area. So turn it around. Don't let the national media change your narrative. You control the narrative. So, but I would say be consistent with your messaging. So if you're going to say, and I heard a top producer do this very well, she's been in the business for over 25 years. She definitely had to adapt when 2008 happened. And one of the things she said is, inflation, and yes, the interest rates are going up, but she gets this all the time, like, well, I want to put my house, I think I'm going to wait until the springtime, or I think I'm going to just not buy for several months. I'm going to wait and see. And what she's telling people is she uses her experience. And again, you can do this if you've been in the business a long time, or if you've got people like me who did weather the storm. You can say, my team and we definitely saw, or we rode the wave back in 2008. And what we learned from that is that, with inflation numbers going up, there's a very high probability that interest rates could go up to double digits next year. And whether you have to sell or whether you have to buy, it may be a good time to do something now, because what we know is now is a little over 7. We don't know what next month's going to be, and it might be up to 8%, and it might be up to 10%. Why would you want to wait? And so she has a very thorough, fluid, consistent process of explaining to people who ask her about interest rates. From her experience, she basically asked the question, why? Why would you want to wait when you don't know what next year is going to bring? And then ask more questions about their personal situation to really help them identify when is go time? When should I list my home? When should I buy a home? So there are more investors out there than ever. I know that because I'm getting phone calls from investors I know saying, Rachelle, I want to invest in the Washington market. We know that the economy is very good in Washington. And there are more serious buyers out there. So if you do have buyers who are looking for properties, they are more serious. They've taken the time to spend with Deanne and other lenders to make sure that they are pre-approved and they have taken the appropriate steps to pay off this credit card or to pay off their automobile loan. So you should be choosing your clients. If you have a seller or a buyer that is maybe taking up too much of your time or is unrealistic, now's the time I'm going to give you permission to go ahead and fire them. There are plenty of people out there that are buying or selling or investing in real estate, and you want to have the time to be able to spend with those people. So you choose your clients wisely. Make sure you're asking the right questions. Don't fire somebody just because you don't like them, but certainly ask more questions. The doom and gloom is today, just the survey I opened before I jumped into this webinar. Survey from Fannie Mae says only 16% surveyed this month said that it was a good time to buy. It is the lowest record that they've done the survey since 2011. It's like, oh my gosh, please stop putting out this news. But the news is out there and you have to be the one to control the narrative. Owning a home is an asset. You need to make sure you explain this to people. And it is there are some tax deductions that they can take advantage. And it's oftentimes, even in our area, cheaper than renting. You need to be able to be confident in saying that and how they structure things. Top producer tips. I'm going to go right into them. Timing for effective offer negotiation. If you're representing a buyer, you might want to watch the price reductions, and their price cuts are happening between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Thursday being the highest price drops according to Zillow. So you may want to kind of go against the grain if you're a seller and maybe not do that theory. Maybe you want to do a price adjustment on Saturday and really take another approach so that you get noticed, because buyers are watching the marketplace and watching for those traditional price drops Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Also, they are watching, if you're a savvy buyer's agent, they're watching for about 3 weeks after your listing goes live on the market. They're looking to see if you did your pricing evaluation correctly. And they're actually doing the buyer's CMA for you. Oh my goodness. So gone are the days where you could just set the price and let the bidders or the buyers bid against it. The market is definitely flipped. And you need to do a better CMA. And if you're representing a buyer, you should also do a CMA to check to make sure that listing agent has properly priced the home. If you need to, go tour some competing properties. Back 6 months ago, we didn't have competing properties to tour. Now we do. And you can use that to leverage your offer and show the seller or show the listing agent by providing comparable properties that maybe their property, although it's not the nicest of the three you looked at, they may be overpriced by $20,000. And so that might be a way to get the ball, get the ball rolling as far as your offer negotiation. Use the data to offer about 5% below the correct listing price. So definitely do your CMA, offer 5% below, especially if there's no offers that you're competing with. And then prepare your buyer to negotiate. You don't want to get a buyer who's not willing to play the game, right? Go back and forth and actually negotiate. So you really need to get them on board with offering about 5% less than what the correct listing price would be, and then get them to negotiate around 2 to 3%. Most of the marketplace, even in 2008, when I worked in that marketplace, sales data for buyers in, say, Federal Way or Bellevue or Kirkland in 2008, if you looked at those numbers, even with it being a buyer's market when there was so much inventory, we were still seeing 97.5% off the purchase price. So don't get your buyers thinking they're getting 20% off. Don't be the agent that writes those kinds of offers. What you're trying to do is get the seller to negotiate with the buyer. So be smart about what data you provide your buyers and what data you provide your sellers so that you can have a win-win conversation and get your client the house that they need. Let's go to the next one. Number 2, working with lenders. You got to put your lender to work. Deanne has definitely been putting in the time. She's working with anybody and everybody that I give her. She called somebody that maybe their credit. There's one that we don't even know if the husband was married. They thought that they were, they thought that they were not. I mean, all those scenarios, your lenders are going to have to do a lot of work in pre-qualifying those buyers, but put them to work for you. They're ready to listen to you. They're ready to take your call. They're ready to work with you on the weekend. They're ready to work with you after hours. Gone are the days where the lenders could just kind of like wait and do some refinancing and kind of like just play the game on both sides. They are really willing to work with you on your purchase business. You want to have a lender that shows scenarios, that works with you and has a strategy to help each unique buyer. I know, Deanne, I can speak to that because I even have your little scenario as just kind of a sample to see what she did for me. Just because I was on the phone with somebody, I was like, I need to show something to the buyer to show them what they, what is potentially happening right now. Top producer tip, there is a rise in ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. There's a rise in assumable mortgages. There's a rise in seller finance. I just did 2 of them tonight. I had 2 over the weekend where we are negotiating on seller finance or owner finance properties. Did you know that VA, there are some loans that are assumable? Those are some great deals for people. And there's buyer seminars that are on the rise. So if you are one of those buyer agents that are working with buyers and hosting those classes, they are on the rise. I'm seeing a lot more hosted. More videos around financing. I know Deanne is putting some little videos together to explain financing, and there are programs that maybe they have not looked at before that will be used. So use those scenarios, but put your lender to work. If you could go to the next slide and just show that scenario, Shannon. So this is what I had Deanne put together for me last week, just to kind of show some different scenarios, right? So that I can kind of go through and just explain to people what the interest rate was, because they're all stuck on interest rate. When it really comes down to it, the price is less by a lot with this particular area that they're looking at. And really think about it, it's only $500-$600 more per month, and then they could refinance. Or we can look at maybe going with an adjustable rate rather than just doing a 30-year. So again, there's a process and a strategy in how we communicate with buyers, and you want to work with your lender. Because I'm not a lender, I cannot put these scenarios together, but Deanne can, and she's able to kind of do some different mapping or strategy talk with your buyer to figure out, where do they want to go? What's the price? How much money can they put down? Maybe we do a co-borrower. Maybe we have somebody else jump on the loan with them to help them with that monthly payment that might be where they need to go. Say this person is wanting to keep their payment at $3,000. We may be able to do that with a co-borrower. But again, that's where the lender comes into play to help advise you and run some different scenarios. Is there anything you want to talk about on this one, Deanne, before I move on?
Yeah, I think it might be helpful just to know that the question was, where do the current interest rates today compare to what was
Back in
potentially a year ago?
Yeah.
So today we're in that 7 to 7.125 interest rate with a value of my eyesight's not that great, Rachelle. So does that say 650?
Yeah, 650 with the base.
Okay, so 650 value, 20% down. And what was the principal and interest payment on that today? Well, it's a greater figure. It's 3,583, I believe.
3,503. 3,500, okay. Give or take.
And I wasn't expecting this, so excuse me, I'd have my glasses otherwise. But what was it a year ago? And this might help you understand where your buyers are apprehensive, because last year, those prices were probably 13% higher than they are today. If I trust what our appraisers or how the adjustments are working.
Right.
So last year, that same 650 home probably would have been worth $750.
Right.
And then if you go down and compare what the interest rates were at that time, there is a differential. So interest rates changing, even though the prices have gone down, there's still an impact to your buyer. But this is the bright side, and this is where we all need to be in our industry, and the economists, not me, but people that actually know the numbers of what they project. If the feds can get inflation under control, they expect that interest rates will be in the mid 5s next year at the end of 2023.
And that's if. Again, that's if. We don't know. But I mean, at this point, this conversation, though, you would have, Dan, with my client would be like, okay, Rachelle, how are you going to keep this property? Is this going to be your forever home?
Exactly. Right? And that's my
forever home. This
Yeah.
might be an investment property that I keep for, 5 years. And you might advise me that we don't do the 7.125. We do something that's different. So we can keep the payments lower, but the interest rate, is different because it's a lower kind of term loan, right? It's a different type of way we structure things.
Right.
So we
And
have options.
that's why every time we have to talk to the client, because it's a little bit like being a doctor. You don't want to, say what prescription they need if you don't know what the problem is.
Right.
You have to get all the details. And so that's why it's really awesome for us to be able to have that half-hour conversation with them to get as much information so we can help advise them and help you get a sale.
Perfect.
So that's ultimately, we're always looking from the perspective of, does this make sense to get a sale? And if it's not today, when is it good?
Perfect. Let's go to the next slide. Thanks, Deanne.
Thank you.
So another top producer tip, or number 3, is backup offers. So if you're a listing agent, I'm kind of switching gears tonight, but 20% cancel rate right now in most of the real estate offices, that's huge. I mean, we try to really shoot for 15%, but 20% can rate is high. So if you're a seller and you're a listing agent, you really do need to consider backup offers. Home sale contingencies are common, and then the home doesn't sell, especially around the holidays where people take the home off the market. Or if you have a 22B or a home sale contingency, you may want to consider going back to market, or maybe doing temporary off market and then going back after the holidays. There are a lot of things like that happening. So if you're pending right now and you have a backup, we have some situations right now where it's like the backup is actually stronger than the offer we received. September, we actually saw in our office a little bit of a higher cancel rate. But October, we didn't see much of a cancel rate. And so what we actually saw was more buyers out there looking in October than in September. So that's the good news is that I think as we start to kind of crush through this fall and winter, we actually will see more buyers. And the backup contract we have on this one listing that we have at our firm, it's actually $15,000 more than the original one that they've accepted. And we're looking for any way we possibly can to put that backup into play. That's the kind of things that you want to have if you're a listing agent. If you have any opportunity you can get to put somebody in backup position, do it, because we don't know what's going to happen with the inspection. We don't know what's going to happen with the appraisals. And we don't know if, just plain and simple, the buyer walks away a week before closing. That has happened. People have walked away from their earnest money checks to the tune of $25,000, even as much as $50,000. We had one recently back in September where somebody walked away from $50,000. And then the seller had to go back to market. So if you know that the cancel rate's that high, a top producer will often, in fact, in my car, if you guys are in my car and you looked at my back where I have some forms, I've tucked away a backup addendum, just because if I ever have a situation where I get an offer and I need to present it, I can go to my car and I could put them in backup position right away. You never want to oh no, let's not put them in backup position. Always take that opportunity. There has been so many times, at least 20% of the time, I'm actually putting that backup into first position. So I would definitely take that option if you have that. Follow up after every showing, even if you're pending. Make sure that you're communicating with those buyers agents, because they may be a backup. Maybe you didn't get a backup initially, but after they go out and tour a bunch of other homes, you might be the first on their list. So go back and see if you can get another, like a backup plan, just in case. Let's go to the next slide. Number 4, work with cash. No offense, Deanne, but cash is on the rise, and we will take every cash that we can get. So you need to learn what to say. One of the things I learned back in 2008, especially with the mortgage, meltdown that we had in 2008, was you got to learn what to say. Instead of saying, "Are you pre-approved for a home loan?" and everybody could get pre-approved, we had to change the way we asked the questions. So one of the things we changed, and I will encourage you to do this as well, is put the ego on the client and just say, "Will you be paying cash for the property, or are you obtaining financing?" It's a very soft way of asking them the question if they've actually spoken with a lender, but putting them more and playing on the ego a bit more to say, "Will you be paying cash?" They're like, "Oh no, Rachelle, I don't have enough cash. I've got this much set aside for the purchase." It puts them in the, you know what, I've been saving up really well, but I haven't quite saved up 20% down. See that you're working with a buyer that may not know that there are programs for people that are putting 10% down or 5% down or 3.5% down, or maybe there's a zero down program that they're eligible for. By putting that, will you be paying cash or obtaining financing? It puts the burden, it makes them feel really special, I would say, in this kind of marketplace is really unglued. How much money do you have set aside for the purchase? That's a perfect question to ask. That will give you some direction. Have you considered pooling your money with a family member? That is huge right now. We are seeing some different cultures coming into our office from all walks of life. Maybe mom and dad are buying for their kids because they can't afford to buy on their own. We're seeing 3, 4, 5 different buyers on a purchase and sale agreement, and that is perfectly fine. And we have seen that in Idaho as well as Washington, that is happening. We have friends buying with friends. It's unheard of. Why would you not want to invest in real estate in the United States of America, where it's a good place a good, safe place to hold your money in our real estate world? I've never been sorry at buying a house, even in the downturn when I bought a home. If I would have kept my home in Salt Lake City, for example, I would have probably doubled or tripled my money at this point in time if I did not sell and kept it as an investment property. So I've never been sorry for buying real estate. Even in a marketplace like 2008, I still would have made money when that came back around. It's a cycle. Have you considered pulling your money out of another source? I had a client back in 2011 when things were starting to kind of recover. We were certainly not there, but they purchased a home in Fife and they were going to buy it with financing. And for whatever reason, they couldn't get the loan. I think they had a short sale on the record from 2008 or 9, Deanne. I think that's what happened to them. And so they ended up pulling out of their 401k, their retirement. This was going to be their forever home. They ended up paying cash. They have not been sorry about that. They've tripled their money since that time in Fife. And that is their forever home. And they've actually since then helped other family members also buy their homes by leveraging the equity in their home that they currently own. So you can also do a 1031 exchange. There are a lot of investors that are taking advantage of that. You do need to know your forms though. When you're working with a cash investor or a cash buyer, there is a way to use the purchase and sale agreement to protect your buyer's cash and also to communicate the validity or the cash that that the buyer has to prove to the seller that this is a very solid buyer that has cash in the bank. So I can help you with that if you just want to shoot me over a text or you're wanting to talk strategy. We don't want to lose out on another opportunity or have the seller select another buyer that's not cash. There are ways to really show the proof of funds and make sure that they understand what they're doing. Let's go to the next slide. I know people want to talk about the marketing and some of the other tips that I got here tonight. But doing a marketing tune-up. So when we start to have things adjust in our marketplace, the number one thing I've heard some people say is, oh, I've just cut all expenses. I'm not going to spend money in marketing. I'm not going to do my postcards anymore. And I will tell you that was a mistake Rosie Rourke made in 2008. Many of you know Rosie Rourke. In 2008, she panicked. She admits she panicked and she went ahead and shut down all of her marketing, all of her postcards. And somebody asked her on a recent panel, would you do that again? If the market shift is impacting your business, would you cut out your marketing? She's like, absolutely no. I would not cut out my marketing expense. And the reason why is because she was in the parking lot at, I think it was 2008, the end of 2008, and somebody was not getting her newsletters, and they actually thought that she didn't survive the crash. They thought she got out of the marketplace. So if something is working for you or there is an ROI, don't pull too far back. You may want to readjust the timing of when you send things out or how you structure that expense. But certainly don't pull too far back where your clients think that you left the business. Instead, spend the money and the time. The VIP letters are huge right now, huge ROI. Handwritten notes, huge ROI. All the top producers right now are doing those two things: VIP letters every month and handwritten notes to their core people or people they're working with, so they know that you care, that you've taken that time. Nurture the clients through the shift. Let them know what's going on. Personal calls absolutely work. Overseas in Armenia, he's in the military. He has a lot of investment properties. I saw a duplex that came across my desk, just like you guys probably get emails. The duplex came across my desk and I was like, huh, I bet my brother might be interested in this. The price is super, super good. It was like $250 for each side, right? So it was combined $500,000. Definitely had income, definitely good tenants in it. So I sent the flyer to my brother and I said, I think it's time for you to maybe look at your investments. Give me a call. Guess what? My sister-in-law called me the next day, called me back just with that simple personal touch. It was an email flyer forwarded to him with a personal note that I'd written into an email that got his attention. It does not take a lot of time, you guys, to personalize your prospecting or personalize your approach and let people know that maybe you want to create that curiosity on maybe it is a good time for them to look at their investments or look at buying a home or selling their home. So those are some ideas that as far as a marketing tune-up, you might want to look at that as far as going personal on some of your stuff. Let's go to the next slide. Number 6, I've got 2 more. Let the data drive the conversation. So be a giver, not a taker. A giver of information. You need to be the one delivering that information to your buyers and your sellers. I know there's some challenges out there. Some of you are struggling right now in knowing how to do a CMA. We will do a CMA class in the next 30 days. I promise you we'll do that in class, and we will do it on Zoom, just so you guys can have a good feel for how I do a CMA. But pricing a property in a declining market, it's interesting. You're going to have to start, your starting place is going to have to be reviewing the comparable sales. However, you have to factor in the rate of decline. So you need to kind of look at that and watch your marketplace closely. This has never been an issue in the seller's market up until now. If you just got your license in the last 5 years, you never had to really consider this. To determine how much your market's declined, you're going to need to examine the comparable sales that existed back in June, I would say. As we wrap up 2022, you're going to want to consider that when you're doing your analysis and compare the average price point in 2021 as we go into the last 6 months of 2022. We're going to need to look at those 2 numbers and make some appropriate adjustments. And that is something that even appraisers are not doing a good job doing. And we need to take the lead on that and make sure we're pricing properties to sell, or we're pricing properties, if we're doing it for a buyer, we're knowing where to target in, where we need to go in so that we get the back and the forth, right? We're not going in too low where we don't get the counter offer. Just like the next slide, if you want to show it on the screen, I have a listing in Seattle. Go to the next slide, Shannon, if you could. I just got this email tonight. Okay, so we got an offer. It's way, way low. I've done the analysis. I know the pricing. I know what's comparable. I know the prices, and I know the actives, and I know what's sold. So the little email that I received tonight was just right below. Thanks, Rachelle. This is from my seller. Really appreciate the patience with our sale. That's the key word, you guys. You want to, with your sellers, you want to show patience. Don't overreact. You shouldn't be price drop. You should be pricing to sell, know your numbers, and have patience with the process, and make sure that your sellers are in alignment. Definitely communicate with them. Communicate with everyone. I can't emphasize that enough. Every single week, you should be sending an email or calling your seller or giving them the update, telling them what the market's doing. I mean, my home's been on the market for over 3 weeks. We're not going to overreact. We know what the prices are. We know what the actives are. But here's what he says. Obviously, it's a starting point. So he's starting to warm up. It wasn't a full price offer. In fact, they asked for it was a way low ball offer I received. And on top of that, they asked for $10,000 in closing costs on a 20% down loan. So we know that somebody that has 20% down for the loan certainly has enough to cover their closing costs, but they're looking to negotiate. But a better negotiation tactic would be to come in closer to where that market price is and negotiate from that. Because here's what the seller wants to counter. He wants to go back and counter at full price, no closing costs, and wants to negotiate furniture. So guess what, Dan? I'm in furniture sales all over again. I haven't been in furniture sales for a long time, But the reason that this is happening is because the buyer's agent didn't do a good job in educating her buyer on what the true CMA or what the value really should have been at. If she would have done that, she would have come in closer, and then we could have negotiated approximately 3 to 5%, I believe, on the actual sales price. But she didn't do that. And instead, she asked for way more than she needed. And here's what the seller's going to say to her: we're not hurting to sell the place, so it's easy to wait it out. Although if they're willing to come up some, we'd be willing to listen. I think this is a perfect kind of snapshot in time that I can give you guys of the seller's mindset. Yes, I know the reason for selling. It is an investment property, so they don't live there, but it's just how this particular buyer's agent put the offer together in such a way where I don't think we're going to be able to come to a meeting of the minds. Your 2023 business will depend on how you nail down the seller conversation. I truly believe that. If you can nail down that seller conversation and from the buyer's standpoint, be able to put your best foot forward and negotiate with the seller, then you're going to have a win-win combination. You're going to have a fantastic 2023, despite all of the media and the nonsense that's out there, because you know how to communicate and negotiate. Those are two very important things that I teach, but until you actually implement some of these ideas in your business, you too can be successful. And the last thing I'll tell you guys is number 8, call and prospect more than you ever have. In fact, while your peers maybe and top producers may be taking the winter off, taking the holidays off, this is an opportunity for those of you who are newer to the business to jump in and start calling and prospecting and connecting with as many people as you possibly can. One of the local firms that I interact with a lot of designated brokers, but one of the firms, they did kind of a test and ran some numbers when they were doing their call sessions in their office. And they figured out that every hour of dialing was worth $1,000. I thought that was an interesting statistic. And when you really put that into perspective, would I spend some of my time actually prospecting for new business if it was worth $1,000? Absolutely. I would prioritize that a lot higher. So here's the tips that I would give you if I was prioritizing my business, which I did do. I was in your shoes many years ago. My priorities was obviously during the holidays, my family, and just kind of the making sure I had time to spend with my family. That was number 1. But number 2, right on my list, was prospecting, phone calls, emails, text messages, personal touch, lots of prospecting. And I would block out time in my day to do that. If you're not blocking time out, things will creep in. And that person wants to go to the Bellevue and they want to go shopping and they want to go here, they want to go there. And you will forget that an hour worth of dialing could cost you $1,000. And for some of you, that's a lot of money that you could actually, if you could spend some 5 hours, that could be $5,000. I mean, the math actually makes sense when I was kind of working out my numbers. And with the sales prices where they're at in our areas that we service, that's a lot of money that you could be giving up by not prioritizing prospecting. Number 3 would be following up with people. Number 4 would be open houses. I'd recommend an open house a week. If you don't have something to do or you're looking for some other opportunities, there are enough open houses out there where listing agents are not wanting to do them. You can step in and do the open house. And if it's done right, you can actually get leads and more prospects from that activity. Number 5 would be appointments. Number 6, transaction follow-up. Number 7, meetings like this. I know if you have prospecting, I'd actually want you to prospect more than actually come to this meeting tonight. Number 8, office work. And number 9, business planning, making sure that you have your plan set. And then obviously number 10 would be time off. Block out time for you to recharge. Maybe that's when you do some of your planning, your business planning, or spending time with your family would be on your day off when you're actually focused on your family. I find that a day or 2 off a week is very, very healthy. Candace, was there anything else that I missed? I'm gonna ask you, you talk to a lot of agents, probably more than I do at this time.
Well, and I will just throw in, I recently have done a few open houses and it's kind of amazing to me. There's buyers and they're out there. They're not approved. I had literally 3 unapproved buyers, but you know, it was worth it. We're walking through the process to get them pre-approved to see where they're at. And you know, one of them's like, I've got $300,000. I just got a settlement. just kind of been looking and, finding that connection. So I was surprised that, potentially 3 buyers from 2 open houses over the last couple weekends. So,
Cool. Yeah. So that's definitely a prospecting activity that we want to do. Shannon, was there some comments that we need to get to?
Yeah, I think other people are feeling it too, Heidi. So in terms of anyone else getting buyer's agents saying your price should be ridiculously lower, I think everybody's kind of feeling that right now. So take Rachelle's tips to heart a little bit, where it's look at the data, lead with the data, even with your sellers and your buyers.
VIP letter examples. Yes, we do have some VIP letter. Candace, can you write that down? We'll only get that out to everybody.
Yeah.
We'll work on getting that out, some samples to everybody in the next few days. So you have some samples, but yes, that's a great thing to do. Anything else, Shannon? 60 days solds. Yes. Love that idea, Guy, that you sent out to everybody. Yes. Recent 60 days solds, pending comparables, active comparable properties nearby. Definitely price looking at actives. Make sure your clients know. Awesome. Well, that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you so much, Deanne and Candace and Shannon, for helping me with this event tonight. And those of you that want to jump in on Wednesday, Lender Survivor should be a lot of fun. We are excited about that. Some fun activities, as well as just learning and putting Deanne and others to the test. It will be a lot of fun to see how they react to the marketplace. So if you've got a little bit of ideas tonight, I think you'll get a lot more ideas on Wednesday on how to combat some of the challenges. And what better people to have the lenders front and center, have them deal with this. So very good. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a good week.
thanks, guys.